Here we go. All you, Eitan.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the shop. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Dynasty Diagnostic podcast. My name is Eitan Mosier. I'm here with FF Stompy, who's actually not FF Stompy anymore. I don't even know what I'm saying. He's Stompy the Bear, Sam Lane. And we are here with an absolute Mount Rushmore character in this industry. Just to start saying this, I have to mention, not only is this guy one of the most generous people and generous personalities you'll ever meet, he's also a mad scientist when it comes to building these fantasy leagues. I can tell you his league is bigger than yours. His league is probably better than yours. His league helps more than yours does. His name is Mr. Scott Fish. Thank you so much for joining us. What's going on, Scott?
What's going on, man? How do I even follow up that, to say anything to that intro? That's amazing. I don't even think I can live up to the intro, let alone anything else. That's wow. Thank you for all of that. It's very awesome what the community has gotten together to do over the last few years.
I mean, you literally have like a month of it's just like this is Scott Fish month in fantasy football.
It's so weird, right?
But it's fantastic because, and I say this on every podcast I do, raising money for charity, giving the fantasy football community something to strive for, to be good. This has not only been gigantic for Fantasy Cares, which eventually goes to Toys for Tots, but it's grown into other branches of tournaments. IDP Guys is doing one for autism awareness, Autism Speaks. And then there's leagues all over the place that donate half to charity or more. And it's phenomenal the impact that you have had on this community.
It's grown into kind of a...
It's amazing. It's amazing to see. I never would have expected this several years ago.
Yeah, it's grown into kind of a mindset. I mean, it's more of like a league feature more than anything now, which is great that you've kind of made that the default thinking when building one of these leagues. So, I mean, just the sheer amount of people that you help, that you reach, that you touch every year through this has to be absolutely amazing. But we are tasked with doing some crazy things today. We are the Dynasty Diagnostic. We are here to diagnose rosters. And we were just talking about how awesome it was that a whole bunch of people in this community are finding different ways to go ahead and give to some of the charitable organizations that both the Scott Fish Bowl and Fantasy Cares support. We have been tasked with doing the same thing. We are going to be diagnosing rosters that were sent in, and we are going to be giving you an idea of some of the things that you might have to be looking for on the waiver wire, or give your league mates an idea of some of the losses.
I'm not helping anybody. I am here to judge your roster and then tell you suck. Get out of here. By the way, so we asked everybody to donate $5 to get in this thing. 16 people donated. Thank you very much. I know it's not a tremendous amount of money, but any money helps to charity. And I am going to announce right now that I am going to match that donation. So it'll be $160 going to charity, I believe, because nobody said that they wanted their money back if we didn't put it on here. So thank you for that. But $160 more going to charity.
Wow, that's amazing. That's so awesome.
Not amazing, Scott. It's not $40,000.
Every little bit counts, man. It's crazy. When I first started doing this, someone would donate. Someone would be like, I can only afford $10. I'm like, dude, any amount is absolutely amazing. $10 is like a few Barbies or like 4, 5, 6 Hot Wheel cars for a kid who didn't have a toy. I mean, every little bit's amazing.
And
I say amazing too much on this podcast already. It's like 5 times.
You are
amazing.
You're awesome. Amazing, Scott. But yeah, obviously not as much as the Potathon or the John Bosch's Eliminators, but like Scott said, any little bit counts. And now that the entire spectacle has been over, and we're kind of the tail end here, I thank you everybody for continuing to donate. And like I said, I'm going to match it, and we'll add on to that. But but you guys are earning it because, like I said, I'm judging your roster. I'm not helping you, not telling you who you need to pick up, just being like, oh, this roster is going to lose.
But before we get into the actual rosters, I did mention early on that not only is he the most generous person that you'll ever meet, he's also a mad scientist in the lab when it comes to these fantasy leagues. And what he does with the Scott Fishbowl every year is he changes the rules around and tweaks them just a little bit year on year to make sure that people can't really catch on to what's going on with the SFBs. So now that we've got a captive audience here, people, I'm going to ask you, Mr. Scott Fish, what is the secret sauce this year? What are the crazy things that you probably should have been paying attention to on draft day?
Sure. Well, it's just with the scoring, it's fun every year. I always try to make sure it's balanced. But in previous years, I did video game scoring to go with the video game theme. And one year I really wanted people to realize that points per first down could be a very real thing in this industry. So I really pushed that. And I've tried to push different things at different times for various reasons. This year, I wanted to show people out there, fans and industry guys, that you can separate the QB tiers. You can make the bad QBs worse and the good QBs better. And I feel it works a little bit better for one QB leagues, separates the tiers, makes the top ones more valuable and bottom ones less. And it does the same in Superflex. It's a good, interesting way to deal with quarterbacks. And I just wanted to show people, hey, you can adjust your scoring just a little bit and make a completely new dynamic and new value sets. But the main thing I always do is I try to make it balanced among all four positions so that when the draft hits, it's just complete draft chaos, and any strategy you want to use will, you can come away happy. You can say, I loaded up on tight ends because it's tight end premium. I loaded up on quarterbacks because it's super flex. I loaded up on running backs because points per first down tend to help them more, wide receivers, PPR, etc. So basically this year's secret sauce was I used my base SFB set that I've used for about 3 or 4 years. So basically passing 1 per 25 years, but we do decimals, or 1 point per 25 yards, 6-point passing touchdown, -4 for an interception. That's a pretty big hit. Then there's -1 for a sack, -1 for an incompletion. So we're hitting those bad quarterbacks real hard there. And then a 0.5 point for a completion. Basically, those last two add up to completion percentage. So you want a good, accurate quarterback who doesn't take sacks. The running backs, wide receivers are pretty normal, half PPR, 0.5 point per first down, 10 yards rushing and receiving, and you get I think that's it. And then tight ends, same as the running backs and wide receivers, but they get an extra 0.5 point PPR and an extra 0.5 point per first down. So they basically get double of both those categories. Very valuable for those tight ends, especially the ones that rack up a lot of first downs and receptions.
There you have it.
I love it. So now it's time to see if the people that sent us their rosters knew this and actually drafted to that accordingly. Are we going to see some crazy things here, Sam, or what do you got for us? You have a few really nice teams. What type of team are we going to start with?
I don't know because I didn't really look. I'm looking at these for the first time.
So am I. I want when you sent me it, I didn't look. I wanted to be just fresh when I see it.
Yep, I didn't look at these at all because I just I want to have like fresh judgment because I want to be real. Like I'm judging a book by its cover right now.
Oh, you got to judge it in the moment, right? It's got to be just the visceral reaction. All right, so we'll start with the first team. And as Scott mentioned, there's so many different strategies here. There's so many different things you can do. We're going to see a lot of different first, I think, 4-round picks. We're going to see what people really tried to push on that given team, whether they tried to load up at one of these 4 positions, and kind of what we can glean from that. So let's jump into this first team. It is Jack Humphrey's team. You can find him on Twitter at Jack Humphrey. And his team starts off in round 1 with Joe Mixon. It doubles back with Josh Jacobs, Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz, James Conner, Jonathan Taylor, Cortland Sutton, Tyler Lockett, Alexander Madison, Brandon Cooks, Tua Tagovailoa, and then he gets his first tight end at the 12:04 with Jack Doyle. Doubles that tight end up with Drew Sample and Jeremy Sprinkle late, and he has N'Keal Harry, Rieger, Lazard, Hurd, Fitzgerald rounding out his wide receivers. For the last few running backs that he drafted, he has Devonta Freeman, Royce Freeman, and Eno Benjamin here. So what it seems to me is this guy definitely went running back heavy, went running back early. So if I know anything about Stompy, I know you're going to absolutely love this team, right?
This is a man after my own heart. I mean, Jack, friend of the show, he's been supportive of us for a long time. He's supportive of the entire community, really. By the way, go listen to Kickers Matter, his podcast from across the pond. But yeah, I mean, this is exactly how I would have started. I mean, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, not in love with Josh Jacobs, but I believe he was like top 5 in first downs last year, rushing. So having him as your RB2 is fantastic. And then to round that out, you have James Conner and Jonathan Taylor as your top 4. So you have 4 starting running backs right there. I love that because you're deep, and then you grab some guys that are kind of risky, but like Alexander Madison's not much of a risk because if Dalvin Cook goes down, you got a legit starter right there. So this running back room runs 4 deep, really, but there are some guys I like late. Devonta Freeman, I like if he ends up somewhere, if during training camp somebody gets hurt.
Philadelphia. I'm sorry, Miles Sanders.
That would explode fantasy football. The one gripe I will say is Aaron Rodgers. I understand with the scoring accuracy and not creating turnovers. I just don't know if he's gonna have the first off passing attempts, and second, how effective he's gonna be with basically one pass catcher.
But then you follow that up with Carson Wentz, who
I love Carson Wentz. No, I
did a lot with a little last year.
Yeah, and I like Carson Wentz. I just wonder who is there with Aaron Rodgers, because there are guys with the scoring, like Scott said, that that Scott mentioned, that maybe weren't great in normal just PPR scoring, but in this scoring, they take gigantic leaps. Kirk Cousins, for instance, was a QB1 last year in this scoring. Matt Stafford dropped a little bit, but he was still, I believe, like QB8 in this scoring. I would much rather have him with a healthy offense. I guess there's just more. I mean, I have not hidden my disdain for Aaron Rodgers over the past couple of years, but I just don't want him as my QB1. Also, not to mention, Jack is in the same division as a friend, John Hogue at Superflex Dude. He listens to Superflex Super Show, and he definitely sniped John on Joe Mixon and Aaron Rodgers, and probably Carson Wentz for that matter. So it's pretty great.
Now I see why Aaron Rodgers was drafted at the 309. If you're in Hogue's division, you need to get that done early.
But look at these wide receivers too. I mean, Cortland Sutton and Tyler Lockett is your top 2, and then Brandon Cooks going extremely undervalued right now on a team that throws a lot of deep balls, and he's the wide receiver 1. So I like this team a lot. And then, not to mention, a man after my own heart with his tight end 1, Jack Doyle.
We're not even going to talk about it.
Oh,
that is one
Jack,
of the things that we're going to skip.
Jack Humphrey, you are the best.
Now we're going to go over to you, Scott. So I'm going to ask you 2 specific questions about some of the players on this roster. So number 1, are you worried at all about the Joe Mixon holdout and what that could potentially do to the first-round pick on this roster? And then number 2, is Brandon Cooks really the guy to target in Houston, or for you, is it Will Fuller?
On the Joe Mixon thing, I'm not too worried at all. I can be super quick on this. I'm not really worried at all. I think he's going to show up. I think he's going to play. I've never been a Cooks fan. I know that his end of season numbers are great many years. I just have a lot of trouble playing him sometimes. And I'm a big Will Fuller, Deshaun Jackson, or Deshaun Watson connection guy. Like, especially earlier in their career, I believe Will Fuller had a touchdown in 7 of the first 8 games they played together or something like that. It was absolutely ridiculous. I think that as long as he stays healthy, I believe in Fuller there. I will say, if this Kenny Stills stuff turns into any kind of suspension or anything, maybe Cooks is going to see some more targets there for a while.
And I guess I'll say
they're all injury prone too. I hate the term injury prone, but they all get injured quite often.
The thing is, Will Fuller actually, his hamstrings have now atrophied, and I don't know if they exist anymore. And
nice.
Brandon Cooks
you can say the same thing about Brandon Cooks, not hamstrings, but his brain concussions.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, but which one is going to get hurt sooner?
That's
Shut up.
I will say on Jack's roster, I love when I see rosters with James Conner. He is like perfect for this format. Like he's going in the 5th, 6th round, and if he hits, he could be a 1st or 2nd round type of running back. And that's the kind of boom player you need in a tournament where everybody combines at the end.
Well, James Conner
we've already seen this.
I mean, he's super undervalued this year because I guess because he's quote unquote injury prone, even though he's a running back. But even if he's in there 12, 13 games, he's going to be an RB1 in most of those games just because of his touches. And especially if Ben doesn't come back and isn't able to throw like he could. And who else has taken touches there? Really? Like, truly.
James Conner this year is essentially how Leonard Fournette was viewed last year, right? He was a guy coming off a very injured season, which he still played a decent chunk of games, but was in and out of the lineup so often that it hurt as a fantasy gamer because you would put him in, you'd expect a certain level of points, and then he'd be out in the 1st or 2nd quarter, and you kind of be left holding the bag. So, yeah, I think that's really depressed his value. But like Scott was saying, if this guy hits, we've already seen the potential that he has to be a top running back in the league. Finally, before we end off with this roster and decide what grade we're giving it, let's go to N'Keal Harry that he selected at wide receiver 50. I mean, does N'Keal Harry have a chance to thrive with Cam Newton at quarterback this year?
I don't know.
I don't know either, but if there was a move that helps, like if the move from Stidham to Newton helped anyone, I think it really helped Harry. I think having Newton's stronger arm there for some of those passes can be much more beneficial to Harry than any of the other receivers. But I mean, it's his wide receiver 3-4. I mean, that's. Mm-hmm. It's what he is.
Cam is used to throwing to big targets. He had Kelvin Benjamin. He had Devin Funchess. Harry is far better than both of those two, I know. But the point is that Cam is not afraid to throw tight window throws. And N'Keal Harry can thrive there. I will say, now that we look at these wide receivers, I don't love the depth. Everything past at least Brandon Cooks to me is a question mark. Past Tyler Lockett is probably a question mark for both of you. So, and a lot of people depreciated wide receiver here, but I think Scott did we'll call it a sneaky thing, even though it wasn't that sneaky in making it. You have to start 3 wide receivers. So
their value comes in the depth.
Yeah, right. So I would say that this depth scares me a bit.
Yeah, this is definitely a team that kind of sacrificed wide receiver a little bit early on. They didn't draft one until the 709. But, I mean, now it's time to talk about the entirety of the team as a whole. Obviously, this person kind of took a little bit of a dip at tight end to go ahead and fortify some of the other positions. Ultimately, what do you think that this team, or what chance do you think this team stands of making the playoffs in a format like this? We'll say it like that, and we'll give it a grade from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest.
I actually was just going to give it a car grade. So this is like, so you have like the 4 awesome rims in the running backs, but then it's like on a Ford Explorer or something, like a 98 Ford Explorer. So everything up top is like That's fine. I'll take the running backs all day, but everything else is like, okay, it works, but I don't love it. I think he probably has a chance just because of those 4 running backs, though.
Yeah, he made one position really strong, and you're always going to have a weak spot or 2 in SFB, but it feels like he's got one really strong position and then 2 okay positions and then 1 weak position. So, I mean, I give it a 6. I think I've seen strong running back teams make the playoffs and make runs. So I give it above average, 6 or 7.
You mean win it all? Is that what you meant, Scott?
I actually was going to bring that up. I believe 2 of the last 3 winners had 3 stud running backs as their core. So that's always something to look at.
There you go.
I don't know who those 2 are. Do you, Scott? I'm not going to make you say it. I'm not going to make you say it.
All right, so now it is time to go on to the next roster that we have sent in. We're sent in by Corey Jeffries. Pyro Corey out there, we love you as well. So this starts off with your boy, Stoppy, Sam Lane, Lamar Jackson, Miles Sanders at the 208. It's a little bit questionable to me, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Julio Jones, 305, Kirk Cousins, DJ Moore, Raheem Mostert at the 608. And then he goes Keenan Allen, Jarvis Landry, Julian Edelman. Follows that up with Austin Hooper, who I would say is probably his only T of note. And then just goes RB crazy at the end of the draft, getting Jordan Howard, Kerryon Johnson, Latavius Murray, Devonta Freeman, Eno Benjamin, Michael Perrine, Michael Hasty, Royce Freeman. And then as the one kind of question mark potential X factor on this team, if he sees a lot of volume, he's also selected Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings. So let's start here. I mean, we just mentioned that Kirk Cousins was a QB1 in this format last year. We expect Lamar Jackson to be one of the top QBs, if not the top QB again this year, and is also pretty nice in terms of completion percentage because he doesn't throw that many passes. Obviously, this person went really quarterback heavy up front, and I think it kind of paid dividends in making their team have that one strong position. My question to you is Miles Sanders followed up by Raheem Mostert and then Jordan Howard as the third RB selected good enough for you in this type of format? Scott, we'll start with you.
It's rough. It's rough. He needs Miles Sanders to hit. I think he went really heavy on wide receiver early, and that's fine. But he's pretty weak at tight end too. It's oh man, I like Corey. He's a very, very big supporter, and Lamar Jackson outshot the entire field by a bunch last year. So he needs both of those first 2 to hit. I like the Cousins pick. I actually really like the Justin Jefferson pick. I would not be shocked if he is the top rookie wide receiver this year in terms of production, but he's gonna need a little bit of help. I'm not loving that running back core. He's basically going to be starting 2 each week and a bunch of wide receivers. He's going to start Sanders, and then he's going to try to figure out which one of the rest of those players is going to be his second starter each week.
So I'm on the, I guess, minority side of Miles Sanders, I think, but I think Miles Sanders has been pretty divisive this postseason, because it's either you believe that he is going to be the bell cow there, or you believe that Doug Peterson is going to use multiple running backs like he has every season. Miles Sanders is probably the best running back he's had in Philly, so I would not be surprised to see him take.
And it kind of showed in the last 4 games last year, right? 80+% of snaps the last 4 games.
I will say,
kept them out there.
I mean, Boston Scott. What are you doing?
That's my bad.
Just it's on interrupting everything. But I mean, Boston Scott had 20. I cite this all the time. 26 targets in the last 5 games. So I mean, it's there. Like that threat is looming, and then you have these Devonta Freeman and Carlos Hyde rumors, and it's just like, do they actually believe in him? I don't know. I get why you would take him there if you believe in him, but he's too much of a risk that early to rely on him as my RB1. If he was your RB2, if you had gone and you absolutely did the right thing and went Lamar Jackson at 105, nobody should be – Lamar Jackson should not be dropping that far in this format. And there are several teams that got him at 106, which is wild to me.
I don't
know
how that happened.
I don't either. I think Patrick Mahomes had happened the same too. But regardless, I just if you were going to grab Miles Sanders there, I would have preferred you went running back as your first overall pick. So we know I am a running back person. This running back room scares the hell out of me because you have about one solid starter. We don't know what's going on with Raheem Mostert. Jordan Howard, I think, is going to be fine, but he's got Matt Breida. Kerryon Johnson's got Swift. So I just don't love the running back room. Wide receivers are fantastic. And I like the quarterbacks as well, but that running back room, I think, is going to really hinder him.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is definitely a case where, I mean, you need a lot of things to go right, to go to plan on this roster. There isn't that many guys other than Lamar Jackson on this roster who we say, okay, well, this is the most likely outcome with this guy. Assuming he's not injured, he's going to be one of the top two at his position. Outside of that, again, like we were saying, Miles Sanders, it's a question of whether or not he's going to get volume. Raheem Mostert still has two running backs behind him in a system that we've seen at least one of them be decent in, Tevin Coleman, even though he was a little bit better than Tevin Coleman. And then the trade rumors came out, so we don't necessarily know what's going to happen with him. And then the rest of your running backs on this group, as Sam was saying, I mean, you just need a lot of things to go right. You need DeAndre Swift to go down for Kerryon to be something. You need Devonta Freeman picked up by a team that wants to use him. At wide receiver, you have Julio Jones, you have DJ Moore, Keenan Allen as your top three. That's a pretty nice top three. I'm not going to say anything about that. After that, Jarvis Landry and Julian Edelman, again, not bad pieces to have on your team, but I think the issue here is you need touchdowns coming from somewhere. If we're not necessarily going to get touchdowns galore from this running back group, then I think it's a matter of kind of relying on them from the wide receiver position. We haven't seen massive amounts of touchdowns for Julio in a while. We haven't seen double-digit touchdowns from DJ Moore. I think he scored 6 last season, and though I think we assume he'll improve those numbers, it's still Teddy Bridgewater throwing him the ball in whatever passing offense you want to say it is. Keenan Allen, he's changing quarterbacks. He's a guy that is more yards and more productivity in terms of PPR points than touchdowns when it comes down to it. And you can say the same thing for Jarvis Landry and probably Julian Edelman in the system without Tom Brady. So I just don't think there's enough punch to kind of get this over the top.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, let's go into grading this, I suppose, here. So again, going to use car analogies here. You have a great motor, you have a great engine in Lamar Jackson, but then it's almost like you're riding on like one good wheel and 3 spare donuts. And I'm just like, oh God, is this going to make it? You can drive 65 on those, but should you? And then for me, wide receivers in this format are more about like the aesthetic of the car than anything. Like you still want a good looking car. It's just, they're not as important. So I think the running backs really hinder your chances at getting into the playoffs here. But if Kerryon actually gets 50% or more of the touches, if Jordan Howard is actually the first and second down guy, if Raheem Mostert continues to do what he did last year, then that answers all of your issues at running back.
Yeah, and really he only needs one of those things to happen because he's got his 2 starting running backs. He's got a bunch of wide receivers to throw into those flexes. Can throw a tight end or maybe Kyle Rudolph, I guess, into the flexes. Yeah, and it's okay. I mean, I feel like both of these first 2 teams are – I like Jack's a little bit better just because I think having a strong running back core has proven to be a very a very good thing in SFB. But these are both okay teams. I like Jack's a little bit better than Corey's, but yeah, good luck with with figuring out your second running back, I guess,
right,
and your tight end possibly if Hooper doesn't pan out.
He won't.
Right. So now we're going into Happy Hour Fantasies roster. Double H Fantasy 1. Love this dude. What's going on, my dude? Thank you for sending in this roster. This guy actually drafted somewhat similar to me, I'd have to say, because he started with the tight end in round 1 and then went quarterback in round 2 with Travis Kelce and Dak Prescott from the 108 position. So it's kind of understandable where he came from with that. I was at the 112 and I went Kyler Murray as my first QB, and then I went Mark Andrews as the tight end of choice there. So I can kind of see the similarity there. And then he pounds running back for a couple of rounds with Todd Gurley and Leonard Fournette. After that, Amari Cooper, Robert Woods, Tyler Boyd, and Marvin Jones pretty much round out that receiver room, although he has Jerry Jeudy on the back end. And then we also have to go ahead and look at what he's got going on with Kareem Hunt as the RB26 in the 7th round behind Todd Gurley and Leonard Fournette, with Teddy Bridgewater rounding out his QB room. Blake Jarwin is kind of there at the end for big play, explosive play. You hope you actually play him in those games that he does go off just behind Travis Kelce if that's needed at all. And everything else at the end of his roster seems to be just a bunch of pieces that you would hope pan out, but you're not 100% sure whether or not they will, aside from maybe Alexander Madison, who, like Stompy alluded to, could be thrust into an RB1 role. So let's look at this. Let's go ahead and start with you, Sam. Travis Kelce, Dak Prescott, Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette. Let's just talk about those 4.
I'm gonna try and be political here. I hate this. That wasn't political at all. I have never found a roster that I've liked that started with a tight end in round 1.
Oh boy.
There are words to be said.
Listen,
I love it.
Listen, the pair of Travis Kelce and Dak Prescott are fantastic. I think that's elite pairing. I mean, you got 2.
I think you're right on this roster. I was disagreeing with that point, but
that's fine.
I think you're right on this roster.
I just never have liked that strategy. I guess I get it, but I've just never liked it because of the fact that now you are you don't get one of the top end running backs, and then you're relying on Todd Gurley and Leonard Fournette, which I understand the appeal of both of them, but both have monster question marks. Todd Gurley with his health and that offensive line. Leonard Fournette, I mean, I think Evan Silva maybe said that he doesn't even know if Leonard Fournette will make this team.
Yep, he did.
So it's just one of those things where I'm like, okay, I get it, because in terms of volume, if they do hit, they hit. And you do need to take risks in Scott Fishbowl, but I just these top 4 picks are just not the way I do things. I would rather be stronger at running back and then take my chances at tight end later. So I don't love the strategy of going tight end in round 1.
What about you, Scott?
I think I'm with. I mean, this is a pretty unsexy roster by most the Twitter analysts that would see it. Just there aren't a ton of the flash guys you'd like to see, but I like Woods. I like Boyd. Mm-hmm. I think Teddy Bridgewater is far better in this format than QB 26 being drafted as QB 26. I think he got a steal there. Blake Jarwin could end up being a decent grab that late for a tight end. He already had Kelce. I mean, there are things I love Dak Prescott in this format. There are things I like about this team, but once again, I mean, Stompy kind of went over it. You're depending on guys that I don't think I would want to depend on. I think that's the key. Like he really needs those picks to pay off, and I'm not sure I see them paying off.
I now see what I hate about this roster, and it's because he has no depth. Like, his top end is fine, except for the fact that you have to rely on Gurley and Fournette. But then after that, it's just like, where am I getting my points from?
This is the balanced scoring problem of SFB. You see, he went 1-1-2-2 over the 4 positions over his first 6 rounds.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you're not going to have depth. But then if you go up a couple, you have a guy who took 4 running backs and 2 quarterbacks, and he looks deep at those 2 positions and not the others. You know what I mean? Like, if you split it up that early like that, you're not going to look deep.
I actually like his top 3 wide receivers very much. And even his top 4, I think Marvin Jones is pretty underrated too.
Yeah.
But the depth here, it's almost like he tried to be too even throughout and not sacrifice a position.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, in SFB, I feel like the best move is sacrificing one of the positions and probably that being wide receiver. Take 10 shots at wide receivers late and hope that three or 4 can pan out for you.
Or I mean, even like if you're getting wide receivers 6, 7, 8th round in terms of your wide receiver 1, 2, or 3, you got to find the correct guys there. Like I said, the top 3 wide receivers are fantastic here. But if he had waited, he probably still could have gotten Robert Woods as your wide receiver 1, which I love. Tyler Boyd as your wide receiver 2. And let's just say you take Amari Cooper out of there, which I don't love Amari Cooper's value, by the way, because of Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb and Blake Jarwin and Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah.
I just think Amari Cooper is going way too high for what you should be expecting from him. So, yeah, I probably would have not.
Do you think his evenness is going to make him safe? Like he probably won't win, but he'll be so middle of the road because he's evenly balanced that he might make the playoff bubble and just hope. Do you think he's below that?
I have to come a little bit from the other side on this with you guys. I can definitely see the risk involved in relying on Todd Gurley and Leonard Fournette as your RB1 and RB2 in this roster. But this is kind of also one of those situations that you get from evenness, that you get from kind of being spread out at all the positions early. If you manage to hit on 1 or 2 waiver wire pickups in the first couple of weeks, then I think everything changes, because then all of a sudden you have that depth that you didn't think that you were going to have, and you're also pretty deep at every position. This was actually the roster that got me to the semifinals, I think, last year. This was the same type of strategy that got me to the semifinals last year, and it was pretty much built on having a solid base and hoping that I could find 1 or 2 guys on the waiver wire that would help me out. The 2 guys that I found were Devonta Parker, and I found Terry McLaurin week 1 when he went off, I think, and everybody kind of went after him. I happened to be the one to get him, and it made my roster pretty decent. But again, I can definitely see where you're coming from, because you need a lot of things to go right. You need those waiver wire acquisitions to make this a full team that's ready to compete.
But I mean, how many times how often can you actually rely on being able to pick up the correct guys on the waiver wire to fill out your roster? Is my issue.
Somebody does it every season.
Yeah, it is tough, but you do see it every season. I think last year a big grab on the waiver wires on people's ways to the championship was Tyler Higbee, and a couple of years ago Nick Foles was a nice grab. 1 year. Dak Prescott, when Tony Romo decided to go bye-bye, Dak Prescott was grabbed everywhere, and he was huge for people. I mean, you do see it every year, but
I guess I understand.
But only one team. It's usually only like one player, and it's usually only one team in the division that gets them. So you got to make sure you're that guy, I guess.
So I guess that's my issue. Is like, okay, yeah, we can't. I mean, it can happen, sure, but the fact that you're trying to rely on that, or maybe he's not relying on it, but the way that Aton is trying to explain it makes it sound like he's relying on it. I think that's riskier than just let's say punting tight end in this format.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. It's definitely a risky thing. It's kind of going to be on a knife's edge. You hoping those, again, week 1 or week 2, that's when you're going to find these guys. And if that happens to not pan out, then it's probably going to be a long season. But let's go ahead and grade this one. So what are we looking at here, fellas?
again, cars. I don't need to mention that every time, but it's like a Ford Focus. It's like a Chevy Impala, but maybe not the new Chevy Impalas, like the mid 2000s Chevy Impalas, where it's like not flashy car. It'll get you where it's going, but you're not racing that thing anytime soon. You're not doing anything with it but traveling to and from work. So I just, unless you like add NOS to it, which is like picking up those two players that are going to help you win, I just don't like the chances of this roster as it's built.
All right, so let's go on to the next one that we have here.
Oh man, we're averaging about. I was gonna say we're averaging about 10 minutes per one. We almost need to.
We need to fly. Yeah, we need to fly here a little bit.
Let's go a little bit faster. All right, so we got Ray GQ's roster.
Oh, I am looking forward to this, Ray. Oh, buddy.
God bless.
You know what?
101.
Looking right here, just at this roster, I kind of want to put a baby in this roster.
See, I don't agree with that.
I like this roster, man. I'm sorry. All right, you tell me Galladay's my one and McCaffrey's my one, and I have two solid quarterbacks. I think his tight ends are good. Like I like it. All right, tell me why you hate it, Stompy. Sorry, Eitan, you go first.
Yeah, you better talk about the actual roster before we do.
You're coming from the 101. Christian McCaffrey falls in your lap. You get Carson Wentz at the 212. Follow it up with Deshaun Watson, both of which have decent completion percentages, are both mobile quarterbacks, both have a lot of weapons that were actually added to their team this year. Even in Deshaun Watson's case, if one or two of those guys happen to stay healthy. Like Scott mentioned, Kenny Golladay in the 4th round, Le'Veon Bell, Kareem Hunt, Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry, Tyler Higbee following that up. And then to kind of round out the roster, Jordan Howard, Jalen Reagor. It wouldn't be a Ray GQ roster without Jalen Reagor. No. And then Dwayne Haskins, Marlon Mack, Robbie Anderson, Golden Tate, OJ Howard, Paris Campbell, Anthony McFarland, John Ross, Devin Funchess, DJ Dallas, and Lamar Miller. I mean, you're stocked at running back because Christian McCaffrey is going to be the RB1 or the RB2 this season. Le'Veon Bell, I mean, say what you want to say about Le'Veon Bell. Volume is at least going to make him somewhat relevant. He's going to be probably a middle-of-the-road RB2 at the worst-case scenario, and there's room for that to grow. Kareem Hunt, he's going to have a passing down role. If anything happens to Nick Chubb, he's a potential league winner. Kenny Golladay, I mean, for me, it's within the range of outcomes that Kenny Golladay is this year's wide receiver 1. I think it could happen potentially this year. I think everybody expects it to be Devontae Adams, and I get that, but Kenny Golladay has that type of upside as well in his offense. Hunter Henry and Tyler Higbee. Hunter Henry's a little bit of a question mark right now just because of Phillip Rivers leaving that team. We don't necessarily know how Tyrod Taylor or Justin Herbert are going to prioritize that position, but we've seen production from Hunter Henry every time he's been on the field. It's been a matter of whether or not he can stay healthy. A lot of people are pegging Tyler Higbee to be the breakout tight end of this year. He was Gronkian, I think, over the last 4 or 5 games of the season last year. Now it's kind of up to everyone to see whether or not that stays, and the Rams do run 12 personnel as often as we think that they will. But I mean, when you look at the backups here, when you look at OJ Howard and what could potentially happen to him, when you look at Marlon Mack and what could happen if Jonathan Taylor goes down or Jonathan Taylor doesn't fire, Dwayne Haskins is the 3rd QB on a team with Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson. This is kind of the roster of dreams. This is how you want to build in the
What am I just like not seeing any of that? Like, this is it's crazy to me that you two.
My only issue with this roster is I wonder about Jalen Reagor as the team's wide receiver 3 because it is a start 3 wide receiver. That's the only issue here. But I mean, other than that, I can't find a fault with this team.
I think the move that kills me here is going Carson Wentz at 212. I like Carson Wentz. I'm not saying like it's a bad pick in terms of who, like the player. I am saying that I think there is a considerable drop from the running back that you could have gotten at 212, and I don't know who was available there versus Le'Veon Bell. I don't trust Le'Veon Bell this year. I don't trust Adam Gase. I don't trust Le'Veon Bell to stay healthy.
What is not trusting Le'Veon Bell? What does that mean?
That offensive line sucks. So it means that
he doesn't finish RB21. He doesn't finish RB15. You don't think?
I don't know. It's the questions, Aton. Like, you know how I build my rosters. I have to have two top end or two tight ends that I know I can trust. Do you really believe you can trust Le'Veon Bell this year? Like, do you trust Le'Veon Bell?
I don't even have to trust him to be an RB1.
That's not what I'm saying. Do you trust Le'Veon Bell?
I trust him to be a solid top end, probably mid at the very worst scenario, RB2, which is all you need with Christian McCaffrey at RB1.
Yeah, I disagree with that because, again, depth sucks here. I mean, the depth sucks here.
What about you, Scott? You gotta break this down for us. You gotta break.
Hold on. Let me just.
Here's my thought with depth on running back when you have Christian McCaffrey. He's playing all 12 of your regular season games. He's a complete stud, and if he goes down, your season's over in SFB anyway. So you shouldn't need depth to prepare for a Christian McCaffrey injury because if he gets injured, you're done anyway.
Not the way I draft, Scott. I'm very doing this, so you're wrong, Scott.
But you're right. I don't love the depth at running back, but with Christian McCaffrey, like if his weakness on his team is depth behind Christian McCaffrey, like I feel like his two tight ends are good. I feel like his two quarterbacks are good. I feel like his wide receivers, they're Kenny G is a great one. Keenan Allen's a good two. And after that, he's going to have to figure out the third. But, man, I really like this roster. It would have been nice if he could add a better RB2, but you can't get everything you want in SFB.
Well, but here's the thing. So if he goes RB instead of Carson Wentz there, at 501, he still gets a pretty good QB unless obviously all of these drafts are different. So if quarterbacks are just flying off the board, I guess I understand that. Like, again, top end here, like you're starting Christian McCaffrey, Carson Wentz, Deshaun Watson, Kenny Galladay, Lev Bell is your RB2 fine, and then probably Higbee because I don't like Hunter Henry. And then you have Keenan Allen. But then after that, like it's Jalen Reagor. Do we trust him to produce in a zero preseason, hasn't been able to do any offseason workouts? Do we trust any rookie wide receiver now? Marlon Mack, I do not understand Marlon Mack, the Marlon Mack hype. I don't get it. I understand he's a good running back.
That is gonna be one of the league's most run-heavy teams this year.
I understand.
And in the event that Jonathan Taylor goes down, Marlon Mack.
Why are you interrupting me?
Just saying,
Jonathan Taylor is going to get 300 carries and dominate the league. Get out of here, Marlon Mack.
Instead of Carson Wentz, he could have had Aaron Jones, Todd Gurley, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Who else went behind him?
That's like the next three over the next round and a half.
Yeah,
okay. I would have had
after Wentz.
Okay, who at like 5? Who in the beginning of the 5th for QB?
Tom Brady, Ryan Tannehill, Josh Allen.
Give me Josh Allen, Ryan Tannehill.
So Josh Allen completion percentage? Like honestly?
So you would have taken Aaron Jones instead of Carson Wentz.
Or Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Or Clyde Edwards, and then you'd rather have
Josh Allen or Ryan Tannehill.
It's easy to look at that in hindsight. I mean,
I absolutely
for
agree.
Sure. But I can see that.
Like, okay, I can see that. Like, yes, those guys can carry you. Christian McCaffrey, Wentz, Watson, Galladay can basically carry you through the regular season. But then it just becomes like this, you have to be the top 10 scorers every week from then on. And it's just like, I mean, do you trust anybody beyond Keenan Allen? Do you trust anybody beyond Kareem? I don't even trust Kareem Hunt, to be fair, but
you hate Hunt. That's
say
what this is.
Do it. To be fair, To be fair, nothing, Scott. No Letterkenny references from you today.
No, not from you today. Okay. No, I love
I guess
so that's what she appreciates about me.
I get the like elite level of the top 4 here, but after that, I'm just like, I'm fine. It's the depth scares me, and apparently I need depth.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, fair perspective.
Depth at running back.
Jalen Reagor, I think, is probably the Achilles heel. The running backs on this team, I mean, make of it what you will. We're just going to have to agree to disagree on this one because I think that, again, behind Christian McCaffrey, all you need is a couple of RB2s, and I think you found them there in Le'Veon and Kareem Hunt. But regardless, I mean, compared to all the rosters we've seen so far, where would you put this one?
This is the best one.
I would say this.
You won't agree, but
no, this one has the best chance to win it that we've seen, or just go down in flames. And it reminds me of a drag race, a dragster, where goddamn, you're gonna go fast speeds, but you could lose control of that thing real quick and die. That was piece.
If you can find like a week 8 dropped Emmanuel Sanders that nobody cares about, and maybe plug him in and have him be solid for those last, 4 or 5 weeks, I think you're going to be flying at the top of this roster. It's just a matter of whether or not you have a solid piece there at wide receiver 3. But let's now go on to Mr. Billy Latin. Drew Brees is his QB1, Deshaun Watson as his QB2. Jonathan Taylor, Mark Ingram, Le'Veon Bell as the 3 RBs. A.J. Brown at 601. Sam Darnold after that at 712. A.J. Green, Austin Hooper, Blake Jarwin, Alexander Madison. And then the wide receiver run begins with N'Keal Harry, Brandon Ayuk, Emmanuel Sanders, Alshon Jeffrey, Alan Lazard, and AGG at wide receiver. Rounding out tight end, we have Kyle Rudolph and Ryan Griffin. And Jameis Winston at the QB3.
Look at his wide receivers. He's got 6 that start with an A. A.J. Brown, A.J. Green, Alshon Jeffrey, Alan Lazard, Antonio Gandy Golden, and Ayuk.
Brandon Ayuk.
Oh wow, there was definitely a pattern there that he was trying to follow. It seems
it's a lot of A's.
But yeah, with all those A's, I still think he's very lacking at wide receiver, which is something we'll get to in a moment. But I mean, looking at Drew Brees at the 112, that's kind of the question here. Are you picking Drew Brees at 112 in this format?
He was QB2, QB3 last year.
He went as high as 106 in one draft.
He is what, 40? What are you doing?
He'll be 41 here. He's we might be the same age. So
well, I'm not okay. I think we need to take all this at relative, 40 in the NFL is like 80.
Yeah, Scott. No, you're ancient. That's what Sampi just said.
No,
you're the oldest person who's ever met.
Normal age. Scott's normal.
40 for a fantasy analyst is prime.
Yeah, right.
For guys who talk about these athletes, that's fine.
Yeah, I get it in terms of accuracy, in terms of amount of passes, but the amount of passes is going down. I just don't think he's worth that risk, I suppose, in terms of what else is available there. Like, I guarantee you Dak's probably there. Rather have Dak.
And that's the thing here. I mean, you say risk. You can find risk at every single position here, like major red flags at every position. So Drew Brees, whether or not he's worth the 112, that's the question here. I think Deshaun Watson after him. I think if you pick Deshaun Watson at 112, that would kind of even, I don't know, make it even a little bit better for me, even though you picked them back to back. I just think that Deshaun is worth that pick maybe more than Brees is. But behind that, Mark Ingram, we don't know whether or not he has his job throughout the majority of the season. We don't know what happens there. Le'Veon Bell, again, I think that he's an RB2, but an RB2 behind what's probably an RB2 in Mark Ingram. Jonathan Taylor, yes, we assume that he's going to be Azor Ahai here. He's going to be the prince that was promised in terms of kind of being this year's Nick Chubb, but still, there's a lot to that. If he gets hurt, we don't know what's going to happen. And then if you look at wide receivers here, it's entirely question marks. There's nothing that you can really guarantee here. Yes, I understand the allure of A.J. Brown, especially in dynasty leagues. I understand the allure of a guy that had one of the most productive rookie seasons that we've seen in a long, long time, of a guy that had just yards per route run that makes you think that he's going to be the next big thing, but still volume when it comes down to it, whether or not this Tennessee offense is going to be as effective as it was last season, whether or not those yards after catch that A.J. Brown pretty much ate off of are going to be as available. Those are question marks. A.J. Green's health is a major question mark, whether or not he's even the more valued receiver in that offense when it comes to him and Tyler Boyd. We don't really know about. And then behind that, you have N'Keal Harry, Brandon Ayuk, Emmanuel Sanders. Ayuk's position is probably a little bit helped because of the Deebo Samuel situation, but still, what is the ceiling of a wide receiver in that San Francisco scheme in what we're seeing, at least what we've seen so far from what San Francisco can do? Austin Hooper, whether or not he hits and whether or not he is going to be what you think he is this year after being one of the top Ts last year is kind of an issue here. So I just think there's a lot of question marks here. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, this seems like now that I look at it, it's like the all hype team for SFBX. So you have Breeze, who was hyped going into Jonathan Taylor, obviously super mega hype after the combine, and then AJ Brown just hyped after last season, and he might be the biggest not sleeper but a bust this year, because I don't see him keeping up the efficiency he did last year.
Yeah, my weird issue is that the two QBs he went with, like, they went QB3, QB4, like right after he picked those, Dak, Kyler, and Russell Wilson went. I would have rather had two of those guys, than those two. But it's what you said. There's a lot of hype here. AJ Brown hype, Jonathan Taylor hype, Drew Brees with his rankings the last couple of years, and maybe Watson won't take so many sacks. I'm with you on that. I can see the hype factor for a lot of these players. I like a lot of the other rosters we've seen so far better.
The wide receivers especially, I don't like AJ Brown as my wide receiver one. I don't like AJ Green as my wide receiver two, but I would like this running back room a lot better if he had J.K. Dobbins, because then I feel like you have three solid running backs for the entire year. That Drew Brees pick, I think, started Bill off on the wrong foot here.
All right, so going to the next roster, Tim Brees merch at TIIM on Twitter. Go ahead and give him a follow.
All 6'7" of him. I think he's like 6'7".
He's a big monster person.
Huge dude. He's a monster. Yeah. Dak Prescott, Joe Mixon, Todd Gurley, Jonathan Taylor, Amari Cooper, Baker Mayfield, and Keenan Allen. Let's start there. Maybe we can add Austin Hooper to that. How do you think that start is for this type of format?
Go for it, Scott.
Stompy's not gonna like me, but I really like this. I really like this roster.
Oh, I love this roster, Scott.
Actually. I like Dak a lot, and if you do worry about Baker not making the bounce back, Derek Carr was great in this format, so he's got three guys there. Hooper, Gesicki, and Doyle. I'm fans of all those picks. They're all starting tight ends. They all should get decent production. He's got the three strong running backs. Well, at least Mixon and Taylor and Gurley if he pans out. Lindsey's we'll see how it works out with Gordon there. But then he does what I like to do in SFB is get one or two good wide receivers, which he did in Cooper and Allen, and then a bunch of dart throws to try to figure it out. I actually this is a roster I would like if it was mine. It's constructed the way I kind of like it. It's a little weaker on tight end than I like to be, but I like this roster.
This is my favorite one we've done so far. Dak, QB3. I think he was the no-brainer QB3 for me just because of his rushing floor, but throwing 600 times every year, or especially with Mike McCarthy and now the 3 pass catchers he has. But yeah, I mean, your running backs, you do have some risk, but you have that solid RB1. And like Scott said, Cooper and Keenan Allen are a good 1-2. You stacked Cooper with Dak Prescott, which that was my strategy this year, was stacking my QBs. And then Derek Carr. Derek Carr was the QB 24 last year. In this scoring, he was QB 11, I believe. So, and then he got Marcus Mariota on top of that. So if Derek Carr loses his job, you have Marcus Mariota to back him up. I like this roster a lot. This is how I would build a roster. Maybe not QB that early, unless it was like Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes. But I love the depth. I love that you took a shot at Anthony Miller, Curtis Samuel, Corey Davis. Like, I love taking the shots on those guys, because I believe that at least 2 of Sanders, Miller, Samuel, Curtis Samuel, and Corey Davis will hit. So I really, really like this roster.
Assuming that one of these Texans wide receivers does get hurt and that all of them are still on the team, that Kenny Stills is still on the team and there's no disciplinary action taken there, Kenny Stills could be the steal of the draft at the 2201. He could be thrust into a role that people weren't expecting him to be in because of the off-injured receivers in front of him, in terms of Randall Cobb, in terms of Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller. All of these guys could potentially deal with some time on the sidelines. And 22 for Kenny Stills, for a guy that in that situation I think would be probably a weekly wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside. That's crazy at 2201. All right, so let's go to Jeff Lambert's team. Find him on Twitter at Jeff Lambert77. Drew Brees, Joe Mixon, Leonard Fournette as the top 3, with DeAndre Hopkins, Ryan Tannehill, Cooper Kupp behind him. Let's start with that.
Oh, Drew Brees. Listen, look, even with Drew Brees, though, I like this quarterback room.
Yeah. He's got 3 solid starters.
Tannehill's a little scary because, again, efficiency with the Titans. I don't know if you can expect that, but I still expect Tannehill to run for 300 yards and do well in the pass game, especially now that he's out from under Adam Gase. Joe Mixon, great start. Leonard Fournette, I get that there, and I don't mind him as the RB2, though there is that risk that he doesn't make the team. The pick in these top 4 I don't like is DeAndre Hopkins. I was going to avoid him regardless of where he landed because I just don't know what to think of him. I understand that he is an elite wide receiver in the NFL, but can you tell me he's going to get 140, 150 targets in Arizona? No, you cannot. Well, you can. I just won't believe you. So I just, if it were me, and again, I know I draft a lot differently to a lot of people. I would have gone and running back there. Because that running back depth is just not great here.
I think we really need to have a talk about Leonard Fournette. I think all 3 of us do, because I don't get it. I mean, like, yeah, you can say it's one thing to say, he could potentially not make the team, but it's another thing to look at the situation of the team. Chris Thompson's behind him, Raquel Armstead's behind that. I mean, who are you going to throw in that situation? Plus, you have Gardner Minshew, who's.
Do you think they care?
Yes, I do. I think they care. I think ultimately
they're not going to do anything this year.
I don't think
they could very well. That could very well be a tank for Trevor thing.
I don't think it matters. I think ultimately, if they want to put any product out there, they're going to have the one person that seems to somewhat be able to move the ball on that team. They have rookie receivers in DJ Chark and Dede Westbrook on the outside. They're going to be running the ball. I think he's in line for a lot of volume again. I think this is just another situation where, yes, there are risks associated with him, but I mean, if you kind of look at it all, I just don't see that happening.
I agree, but that risk is still there that he does not make the team.
We want to talk about risk. Let's talk about Evan Ingram. We'll start with you, Scott.
Can I chime in on Fournette?
No, let's Scott. Yeah.
I think there's let's go under the assumption he makes the team. I think there's one very big positive and one very big negative there. Chris Thompson is going to, like, Leonard Fournette led that team in targets and I believe receptions last year, like even above the wide receivers. I'm pretty sure of that. I think that goes down with Chris Thompson there. But on the other side, Leonard Fournette, I don't think they keep him after this year. So why not run the wheels off of him? So that's a possible pretty big positive.
And then on top of that, I mean, you can talk about Leonard Fournette's potential health worries. Chris Thompson has potential health worries. And even when Chris Thompson's been on the field in the last couple of seasons, he hasn't been a very efficient back. Leonard Fournette actually beats him out, I think, in yards per touch. So even if you're looking at him taking a big portion of the receiving work, okay, take a big portion of the receiving work. You're going to take, 30, 40 targets from Leonard Fournette. Okay, that's still 60 targets. And then we're talking about 3 touchdowns scored last season. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that can go a lot of ways for Leonard Fournette. I just think at the end of the day, RB15 is probably fair for him. I think he has the potential to do what he did last season and kind of finish in that low-end RB1 spot.
Just to correct myself, he was 3rd on the team in targets, but he did lead the team in receptions.
There we go.
I don't think that happens again.
In terms of Evan Engram, do you really want him as your tight end 1 is the real question. Like, we know he's going to be productive when he's on the field, but then again, like, has he ever been on the field when everybody's been out there?
Crazy thing, he was on the field when everyone else was off the field the first year that he had that big explosion.
Well, but even last year too, like you had issues with Sterling Shepard being on the field. They didn't really have any. I mean, you had Golden Tate, but I mean, I guess if you actually look at the pass catchers there, it makes sense. I just, he's still on that rookie year hype, and I just don't like it.
Yeah, the problem with Ben Ingram is you have all the expectation that he is going to be an absolute baller on the field when he plays, because we've seen that, and we think that Danny Dimes is probably a little bit better than what we've seen from Eli Manning. Has a little bit more juice, has mobility, so can extend plays a little bit, and maybe be a guy that can allow his receivers to be a little bit more of a deep threat, but yeah, it's compiled with all the risk of whether or not this guy's going to play. And if he doesn't, then Dallas Goedert behind him. Is he starting? Has something happened to Zach Ertz? If not, then we're still splitting starting position there. O.J. Howard, the same thing can be said of Rob Gronkowski, probably even to a lesser extent. So this is one of those situations and one of those rosters where, again, you need a lot to go right for this to happen. There isn't really a clear pathway for this to work out for you, unless, X, Y, and Z happens, which I guess you can say about every roster, but it's kind of more pronounced with ones that are constructed like this.
I just don't see the strength, I suppose. Like, you have some good players, but where's the strength anywhere?
Yeah, what's your advantage week to week? Where do you outscore your opponent every week? I don't know where you do that on this roster. All right, so Kevin Tompkins, you can find him on Twitter at KTompkinsSII. His roster is pretty much just all running backs. Saquon Barkley at the 102. Drew Brees after that. What is the fascination with Drew Brees so high? Todd Gurley, Chris Carson.
11 though. Like that's much more.
That's a lot better.
It's a lot better. It's a lot better, but still for me, honestly. But Saquon Barkley, Todd Gurley, Chris Carson are his first 3 RBs. After that, he's got Jordan Howard, Zach Moss, Boston Scott, and Antonio Gibson. For wide receivers, he has Robert Woods and A.J. Brown. Deebo Samuel's his 3rd wide receiver. He might miss the first 5 weeks of the season. I think that's what we're looking at right now. And then his T1 is one of Blake Jarwin or Eric Ebron, and then behind that, Tyler Eifert or Caden Smith. So I think you can see that he punted tight end in this format. Robert Woods at wide receiver 1, A.J. Brown at wide receiver 2 with question marks behind that. I mean, yes, I understand the fascination with running backs in this type of format, but I kind of think maybe this guy went a little bit overboard because I just don't see anything really anywhere else to get you over the hump. We'll start with you, Scott. What do you think about this roster?
I think he's going to need to trade some running backs.
Oh, Scott, you should make it a trading league. that could add a whole weird.
Oh my God! Imagine the chaos.
Yeah, that would be insane. No, it's he's got 3 good quarterbacks and then a bunch of running backs that he can easily turn into his 2 running backs plus for 3 flexes, I suppose, with the quarterback. So, I mean, he's got good starters there, but man, I hate his tight ends. That's really rough. And behind, like, normally when you do I'm only going to go with 1 or 2 strong wide receivers, you generally have a bunch of dart throws that have upside that you can just put in. And this doesn't really have that, even though, there's some potential with Perriman and Lazard, and it's just not enough. His wide receivers are really weak. He's going to have to play the waiver wire.
Yeah, it's like a lot of these guys start out really well. Like I don't love Todd Gurley, but I don't mind the top 5 really when Robert Woods is my wide receiver 1. But then, like, it's just like they start taking these weird risks that they shouldn't be. Like AJ Brown, I get it. He is going to be a star in this league. This year, he is going to fall, not flat, but he's not going to be nearly as productive. Ben Roethlisberger, God knows if he even has an elbow. He might just be throwing with a bicep and a forearm. I mean, know.
That's all Ben Roethlisberger's ever done, though. So.
But I mean, even his top 4 running backs, I'm good with. Like, I don't mind Jordan Howard as my RB4, but Zach Moss, I don't like. Well, I actually don't mind his running back room. Everything else, I'm just like,
Well, no, his running back room is good. It's pretty good. I mean, it's good and deep, but it came at the expense of,
like you went heavy RB, didn't go like get like the elite top of the line RBs. So you have a strong RB like room, but everything else is like, okay, I have a great starter in Robert Woods, but everything else behind him, I'm like, meh. You don't have tight ends.
What's weird is I feel like I would have liked this team. I mean, all these teams, I can say positives about all these teams. And there's positive things with all these teams. I'm just thinking to myself, because he got Roethlisberger and Minshew there, if like you took Drew Brees out of that 2 slot, took a running back there, and where Chris Carson is, took a wide receiver there, this entire draft would be so much better. Like if he took like 3 quarterbacks at like the 7th, 8th, 9th, or 6th, 7th, 8th, if he took his quarterbacks there and took a wide receiver instead of Brees, it would be so much better. Or a tight end instead of Brees. I don't know. I feel like that Brees move was unneeded considering he had Roethlisberger and Minshew, but you don't know that at the time.
Like, even if you don't take Brees there, you probably get a pretty nice running back. I mean, I'm assuming that there's a couple running backs that go between Brees and Gurley. Maybe not, but I just don't like Brees that early. Like
This is the Thanos meme. The one where he says, what did you get? Running backs. What did it cost you? Everything. Everything on this team is pretty much a reflection of the fact that you spent so much capital.
But by the way,
his running backs and quarterbacks are going to do fine for him. It's going to be a nice base for him for the year.
I was going to say, I have a pretty loaded running back room, but I feel pretty good about my quarterbacks. I feel pretty good. Actually, it's a championship winning roster that I'm looking at. Not on that page, but the one I'm looking at that's my own team.
Right. Of course. Of course. Let's go on. FFA Meng, you can find him on Twitter at FFA_Meng. Dak Prescott, Nick Chubb, Chris Godwin, Adam Thielen, Robert Woods, Jimmy G, Teddy B, Keyshawn Vaughn, Christian Kirk, McCole Hardman, and James White. I already know Sam hates this roster.
You started out so great. What are you doing?
Let's talk about Keyshawn Vaughn. Let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers running back room. Is Keyshawn Vaughn an RB2 in this format?
No. God, no. What? Who? Tell me what he's going to do. Because Ronald Jones he's a good running back. Is he really going to beat out Ronald Jones? Is he going to put up James White type numbers? No, because he has Chris Godwin, Mike Evans to deal with, and Rob Gronkowski. Get out of here with Keyshawn Vaughn. I don't understand the hype around Keyshawn Vaughn.
I think it's baked in here. He got him in the 8th round in a format that has running backs go heavy early. So, I mean, he's RB30. So I think that's a little bit baked in.
Ugh, guy, He's not a pass. I mean, he's not a pass catcher. I don't understand the hype.
I love this guy's wide receivers. I'll say that. I love these wide receivers, but he did pay for them. But like every one of his wide receivers, except for maybe Isabella, who was just a last round dart throw. But all the other wide receivers he has, I was targeting in my draft. I got a couple of them, but not all of them. But those are guys I target in drafts. I like all of those wide receivers.
I agree with that. I mean, Preston Williams as your wide receiver 6 is fantastic.
I
don't love Christian Kirk, but
assuming he comes back, okay.
Your top 3 and then are fantastic, and then Mecole Hardman and Preston Williams are great depth. So you started out so well, Dak and Chubb. You just went wide receiver heavy too early for me to like this roster.
Thielen and Woods are going to be within shout of the league lead in targets this season. It's a fact of life. It's becoming, as long as both of these guys are healthy. But yeah, outside of that, behind Nick Chubb, Keyshawn Vaughn, I mean, again, you don't need to be completely balanced at every position. I can see that you kind of forgone the tight end position here with Greg Olsen, Tyler Eifert, and Ryan Griffin as your tight ends, but there still has to be some balance. Maybe not in the first 6 rounds, but in the first 11 rounds, you need to make sure that you have solid pieces that you can see starting week 1. You already have a question mark just from the starting point of who's going to start in that RB2 spot on week 1, and that's not a position you want to find yourself in.
Like Boston Scott, Nyheim Hines, and James White are fantastic depth, and Chris Thompson for that matter. But you're trusting too much with them without like an RB2 and RB3 ahead of them. I will say, I think the QBs here are his strength, and it low key might be an elite QB room. I know Jimmy G was a QB1 last year. Teddy Bridgewater goes into a team that should be throwing more with Joe Brady and has fantastic weapons all over the place. So this could low key be one of the better QB rooms, really, in SFBX. If I'm without going like top or your first 3 picks as QBs.
I like this roster. The more I look at it, the more I like it, honestly. I don't like you mentioned Hines. What if Moss takes over for Singletary? Chris Thompson, if he's got that pass catching role, Boston Scott or James White, if they, really turn it up, like he can make an RB2. He just can't expect to be flexing running backs. He's just going to have to flex wide receivers all the time. His tight ends are terrible too. But his quarterbacks and wide receivers are very, very good. Like probably some of the better sets in SFB. Yeah. Like they're up there. They're really good.
Like I guess I like Boston Scott, James White, Nyheim Hines, and Chris Thompson, like I said. Yeah. But again, I think you're relying too heavily on them here, and like the what ifs involved. Like what ifs that I mean, yes, that's true, but Devin Singletary still exists there. What if Keyshawn Vaughn? Well, Ronald Jones was good last year. So I think that's the issue, is that he has too many what ifs in the running back room versus, okay, I have a solid couple starters, and now I can take swings a little bit.
All right. Andy Spiteri. Find him on Twitter at gasstock_spit. Lamar Jackson, Kenyon Drake, Austin Eckler, DJ Moore, Daniel Jones, Devin Singletary, Devontae Parker, and T.Y. Hilton before Darius Geis. Wow, you got Darius Geis after Singletary. It's kind of crazy to me. Where are we at with this?
I like this a lot. Kenyon Drake and Austin Eckler, potential top 5 running backs, but I still think both are RB1s. Lamar Jackson, obviously, I don't need to say anything about him, but Daniel Jones is your QB2. I mean,
it's good.
And then your top 4 running backs are fantastic. I like this roster a lot.
I don't like it as much as you, but I like it. It's good. It's okay. It's I'm a big Singletary fan. Probably it sounds like more than Aton is, but it's Geis and Singletary have their question marks, but It's okay. His tight ends are not great. He's only got 2 quarterbacks, but it's a good 2 quarterbacks. I mean, he has Justin Herbert, but in a year where I have more faith in Tyrod, there's no training camp for rookies. Basically, they're not going to get no time, and if the season does get cut short, usually rookies like Justin get time at the end of the season, and if it gets cut short, he gets no time. So like he's really got 2 quarterbacks, but they're good 2 quarterbacks, so not deep there. It's okay. I see some strengths there. His quarterbacks and running backs especially, but that's what it is. You're always going to have a position or two that are a little weaker.
Scott, before we move on, Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa, do you see them in the same way?
Oh boy. I guess pretty close to. I would have more faith in Tua on it, but it's I can see that being the same way for each of them, that it's going to be tough for them to get on the field early, but it's tough.
I think this roster hinges a lot on T.Y. Hilton for success, because depending on how you feel, I mean, T.Y. Hilton could be a big boom player this year, especially with Phillip Rivers, or he could be a bust and Paris Campbell and Michael Pittman take over. So I think that's where this roster hinges for me, that and Darius Geis' health. If Darius Geis is healthy, T.Y. Hilton is the T.Y. Hilton of Drew Brees time.
Mm-hmm.
Not Drew Brees. Andrew Luck. I don't know. Because we keep talking about Drew Brees. Stop with the Drew Brees.
Or none of the weapons in Indianapolis pan out because they're the run heaviest team in the league, which is also a very likely scenario.
Okay.
It's also possible.
Whatever.
I guess my last thing on the Tua Herbert thing. I mean, Anthony Lynn coached Tyrod in Buffalo, and I think Tyrod will be a little safer. And Ryan Fitzpatrick can go to pumpkin in from 0 to 60. Like he can be amazing and then turn into a pumpkin, and then Tua would get in. So I guess my money would be on Tua if I had to bet on one of those two to get in early.
That's kind of where I'm standing too. I think Tua is going to start 8 games. I don't know if Justin Herbert is going to. All right, Matt at MZKP54, Saquon Barkley, Kenyon Drake, Mark Andrews, Kirk Cousins, Chris Carson, Ryan Tannehill, DJ Chark, T.Y. Hilton, Cam Newton at the QB 24. Nice pick. And Will Fuller in the 10th round. Do you need running backs behind Saquon Barkley? What are running backs behind Saquon Barkley? And if you have Kenyon Drake and Chris Carson, do you really need to worry about the position at all for the rest of the year?
With Chris Carson, maybe, but no. Honestly, this guy Matt lucked out already with that Cam Newton pick. So I will say I like DJ Chark as your wide receiver 1. I hate Will Fuller. I'm just going to straight up say it. I hate Will Fuller.
We know.
Mike Williams, he's going that late, so I don't mind that. Honestly, as long as everybody stays healthy, I actually like this starting roster. And if like somebody like Steven Sims hits or Corey Davis has that 5th-year breakout, then you're looking at competing.
I really like this roster. I really like it. I like Barkley, Drake, Carson, AJ Dillon. If Aaron Jones gets hurt, AJ Dillon could be just an absolute stud. Chase Edmonds, if Kenyon Drake, he's got that whole backfield there. Benny Snell, if James Conner, who gets hurt a lot, he had 6 injuries in the first 8 weeks last year, he could come on. It's not shown here, but Daria Gumbawale was his final pick. Could be the pass catching back there. His wide receivers, I like so many of these wide receivers as decent plays that he can rotate. Mark Andrews, and I love Irv Smith for a breakout this year. Cousins, Tannehill, Newton is his quarterback room. I like everything about this roster. I'm sorry. I really like this roster, Matt. So when you wake up tomorrow and you can't log in and my name is on your team, just that's you're just gonna have to deal with that, I guess.
See, Scott's just like, I'm gonna cheat because this tournament's named after me. So
all right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one. We got Eric Nelson here at Eric_Nelson_ AK-47, Alvin Kamara at the RB3 at the 103. Josh Jacobs behind him, Carson Wentz, Melvin Gordon, Jimmy G, Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf, Gardner Minshew, Tyler Boyd, Dallas Goedert. I have to say, I mean, aside from maybe Dallas Goedert as your tight end one here, I really, really like this team. I think this has a good shout of being a team that we see in the playoffs. What about you, Stompy?
This is my roster, baby. This is the roster that is the best on this list. Alvin Kamara, Josh Jacobs, Melvin Gordon. Are you kidding me? Get out of here. And then, Alexander Madison. Yeah, like if we say if, but probably when Dalvin Cook goes down for a few games, Madison's a fantastic plug and play. Carson Wentz, Jimmy G, Gardner Minshew is a fantastic running or a QB room. And then this is what I'm talking about when I'm with wide receivers. Calvin Ridley in the 6th, DK Metcalf in the 7th, Tyler Boyd in the 9th, and then you get Mike Williams, Preston Williams. Like this is a team after my own heart. I'm not kidding. This is exactly how I would build my team.
His draft helped him out quite a bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like this is a draft that did not value wide receiver.
Yeah, there are a lot of leagues where this team was not possible to be constructed. I'm with Stompy. This is one of the better ones. I mean, there was Ray G, there was Matt. This one, Tim's was, right under that, I guess. And I think Jack a little earlier had a decent one, but this is right up there, top 3 or 4 for me of the ones we've looked at.
This is exactly how I would build. I mean, I think this is almost exactly how I build my rosters. Like I think I took Deshaun Watson in the 2nd, but I have Kamara. Jonathan Taylor, and Chris Carson in 3 of the top 4. And then I believe I got David Montgomery in the 7th, by the way. So, I love this roster a lot.
All right, and we're going to hit our last couple here, guys. We're going to go with Mark Dooley, Duels33 on Twitter, Duels_33. Zeke, Wilson, Hopkins, Rodgers, Waller, Ridley, Swift, Diggs, Mitchell, Samuel, James White, and then CeeDee Lamb and Jalen Rigger to go ahead and round it out. This kind of seems to be one of those balanced rosters, but this to me seems to be a balanced roster done right. You're going to have some worries at running back with Swift and Sony Michel and whether or not that works out for you, having James White behind him. I mean, that's all well and great, but who are you going to start every week? So there's definitely an issue at RB2. But aside from that, I think you kind of got all your other bases covered here. What are your thoughts on it?
Go ahead, Scott.
I actually think Sony Michel's, okay in this format. He's going to get a lot of volume. He's going to get 230, 250 touches. He's going to get an okay amount of first downs. He doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. I think he had like 6 last year or 7, and 3 came in the same game or something. It's, that's not a big scoring point for him. His wide receivers, he did it every other round or so, which makes them pretty strong. His tight end 1 at Waller is great, but they added so many weapons, and I don't exactly know how he's gonna fare with that this year. So it's almost all these rosters have something in common, and that's fairly weak at tight end. I think there was one with Andrews, and one with Kelsey in the first, but behind Waller, he's pretty weak. He's only got the 2 quarterbacks, unless you count Taysom Hill. It's okay. It's balanced. It's better than the other balanced one, I think, but it's okay.
I agree. I think it's
okay for a lot of these, which is SFB rosters, right? They're all okay. You can make the case for a couple positions, and then you could make a negative case against a couple positions.
Yeah, it's fine. I think rounds 3 through 5 killed you a little bit. DeAndre Hopkins at wide receiver 5 doesn't make sense to me. I'm never going to like Aaron Rodgers the rest of his career. And then I love Darren Waller. I actually am high on Darren Waller, higher than most people, but I punt tight end in this because I don't think tight end has that much of an impact, honestly.
I think tight ends. Okay, go ahead.
Says the guy that had picked George Kittle in like the 5th round of the year he won, or a 5th or 6th round, and then George Kittle went off to be the tight end 1 or 2. So ignore me or don't. I don't know.
I will say historically in this, having strong QBs and strong tight ends is basically your lock for the playoffs. After that, it is what it is. But like those two positions give you floors that get you to the playoffs. So that's one of the things I look for sometimes. But if I'm looking for a team to win it all, that's a whole different story.
All right, and this is going to be our final roster, guys. Matthew Hillebrenner, you can find him on Twitter at the Lefty Hook. Saquon Barkley, Kenyon Drake, Mark Andrews, Jonathan Taylor, Roethlisberger, Tannehill, Lockett, Boyd, Hurst, Goddard, Minshew. Again, this seems to be a balanced roster, but this kind of seems for me to be a balanced roster done right because you hit running back so hard so early with Saquon, Drake, and Jonathan Taylor at those first 3. With Mark Andrews behind that, everything that you said about tight ends kind of being that floor for you, I think you've done well because all you need is one of or 2 of Ben Roethlisberger, Ryan Tannehill, and Gardner Minshew to be QB 9 to QB 13, QB 14, and you have a really, really deep, really, really good team here.
This is one of those teams that I think is pretty good at 3 positions, like good to great at 3 positions. And his wide receivers, he's got, 8 of them? He's just going to have to rotate. It'll be tough to figure out week to week, but he's just going to have to rotate his 8. But they're 8 upside guys. So that's, I like this roster.
The Ben Roethlisberger pick is the confounding one.
In the 5th round.
Do you really want Ben Roethlisberger as your QB1 in the 5th? I have to believe that there's better QBs.
Well, he went QB 13, so
no, I agree, but they're just like guys where it's like, okay, I would rather have Ryan Tannehill as my QB1 and then get like Teddy Bridgewater and Gardner Minshew.
That's the scary thing here. It's like you have basically Jameis Winston. You have what is Jameis Winston in the NFL right now with Big Ben as your QB1 in a format that punishes interceptions so heavily. That's the scary part here.
My scary part is I don't know about his health. I think the risk here is that you took him early and he's your QB1. And if you're going to do that, you may as well take the risk with the healthy guys. So like I said, Teddy Bridgewater, Derek Carr. I mean, Derek Carr in this format's fantastic. Jimmy G. So I think that's the one pick where I would I don't get it. But everything else, I actually don't mind this roster. You went tight end, a little bit more tight end heavy than I would like. I like Mark Andrews, great. He's going to be a top 5 tight end, but I would rather take a chance on Hayden Hurst and Dallas Goedert being a tight end 1 and getting your actual a good QB1 in the 3rd, or even just another running back.
You just hate all tight ends not named Jack Doyle, right? It's not where you're at this point.
I picked Noah Fant. I like Tyler Higbee, but like for me, it's Mark Andrews. But Hayden Hurst and Dallas Goedert have fantastic chances of being top 12 tight ends. So I guess for me, does Mark Andrews give you that much of a leg up?
I think so. I think one of the top 4 tight ends is extremely valuable this year, but that's neither here nor there. Scott, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I started this out saying I like the 3 positions. I think his I'm fine with what he does with wide receivers. He's just got to figure it out week to week. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I like this roster. We got 2 left. You want to like 2 to 3 minute them and just get them out of here?
Yeah, let's knock it out.
So Mick Ciala at the Mick 23, Alvin Kamara, Josh Jacobs, Melvin Gordon as his top 3 running backs, Carson Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo, Gardner Minshew at quarterback, Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf, Tyler Boyd as a top 3 wide receiver core, with the first one drafted at the 6'10". That's impressive. The issue, pretty good, as always, is Dallas Goedert at TE1.
Am I crazy? I think I might have copied a wrong roster here.
Yeah, that's not mixed.
Yeah, sorry.
Never mind. Let's go to Joe Murphy's for now while Stompy fixes this. Murph 1305. The roster is at the 104, Saquon Barkley, 209, Kenyon Drake, Julio Jones, Aaron Rodgers, Allen Robinson, Raheem Mostert, Joe Burrow, Tyler Boyd, Mike Gesicki, and Austin Hooper, with Austin Hooper drafted after Mike Gesicki. That's interesting. Tevin Coleman, Nick Foles, and Jay Sternberger. And then you got Jalen Reagor on the back end. You got T. Higgins in the event that A.J. Green goes down. And you got Mitchell Trubisky if he turns out to be the starting quarterback, and that is not Nick Foles. So you essentially got a for sure QB3 in that group there. Saquon Barkley, Kenyon Drake, Julio. I think this is all fine until you get to 409 with Aaron Rodgers, because I just don't want Aaron Rodgers this year. Although I'm not in the same camp with Stompy. I think if the Green Bay Packers go ahead and draft Rashad Bateman next year, then I want Aaron Rodgers again.
Aaron Rodgers won't even be there anymore.
Minnesota boy, I love it. I love it. Bateman's awesome. He's so fun to watch.
He's
by the way, I looked up the guy that we had the wrong copy paste, and I see why Stompy put in the wrong one. He didn't want him in there because.
Oh no! Now I see it. Oh god! All right,
because of the tight ends. Because there were too many tight ends, right?
Anyway, Joe Murphy. Barkley, Drake, nice start. Your wide receivers, man. I'm kind of with Eitan that I would have rather had a different quarterback than Aaron Rodgers, but I'm not looking at what was available at the time. I mean, QB 13 is actually a pretty decent spot for Aaron Rodgers, I'd say. I just wish you could have gotten possibly an earlier tight end or a different quarterback up there, or actually a running back 3 there, and take a running back 3 where you took Rodgers, and then 2 rounds later where you got Mostert, grab a different quarterback there. I think I would have been a little happier with the roster if you'd done that. But I mean, it's okay. It's got its points.
Can we just use this as an excuse to talk about Allen Robinson and how dominant Allen Robinson's going to be all over again?
He's dominant. He's usually pretty underrated.
I like Allen Robinson a lot, but dominant with the 2 QBs that we're talking about, I'm good.
I just think that he's just going to be in line for one of the highest target shares in the league because of him compared to the other pieces on that team. I mean, Allen Robinson is the only stud that you can really put on that offense as a whole. So I just assume that he's going to get all the volume regardless of who starts at QB. And me and Stompy are at other ends of the spectrum with this, but I think this is one of the rare cases that you actually find Allen Robinson with the best quarterback that he's had in his career with Nick Foles, even though Nick Foles isn't that much better than Trubisky. I really do think that when you compare that to Bortles and all the rest of the stuff that Allen Robinson's had to deal with, that this might be a year that Allen Robinson actually has a catchable target more often than not.
He had a 1,400-yard, 14 touchdown season, Eitan. What?
I understand, and now it could be better.
No. Oh my god. Oh my god.
I'm kidding. That's not gonna happen.
Boy.
Listen, he was a wide receiver 1 last year. I think he can be a wide receiver 1 again this year, but dominant, dominant says top 5 to me, and I don't think that's in the cards with those 2 quarterbacks.
Do you think he'll have one of the top 5 targets, one of the top 5 just total targets in the NFL this year?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to say that
it's in the realm of possibilities.
All the offenses in the NFC North are very concentrated. You have Thielen, you have Adams, you have Golladay, and you have Robinson. It's in the realm of possibility, like Scott said. It's in his range of outcomes. I'm not going to say he's going to have a top 5 target season.
All right, with his roster as a whole, where are we at with it?
Yeah, I agree with
It's middle
Scott.
of the pack for what we've seen here.
Scott, that Aaron Rodgers QB1 pick, I think hurts. It's middle of the pack, like Scott said, top in talent.
And Burrow is also I love Burrow for Dynasty. And I really like Burrow, but I mean, he's a rookie with no training camp, and he hasn't worked with all these players, and it's going to be a bit of a learning curve. He's looking at some of the best quarterbacks out there in their rookie years. There's a lot of rough rookie years out there, so I mean, he could have some troubles there.
Depth all around is an issue on this roster. You're 2 deep at running back. You're 3 deep at wide receiver. I mean, I don't even know what to say about quarterback. You're fine, I guess. And then you're going to, hopefully one of Gesicki or Hooper hits. But there's no depth here and that anywhere. And that scares me.
Yeah.
All of that said about all of these rosters, they're all going to make the playoffs. I'm going to guarantee it now for the listeners. Every one of your rosters is good enough to make the playoffs.
Everybody can feel better after listening to this.
That's what we're here for. That's what
I have liked stuff on every roster.
Oh, I have too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, final roster here, Eitan.
All right, so this is the real Mixiala roster that's not be replaced. But again, Scott, you've already revealed the conspiracy here that Stoppy left this one out because of the top 3 selections in this one. There is always kind of the temptation to just be different and just go away from the crowd and just do something so crazy that nobody can have a roster that's like yours in a tournament that is so large, that is so vast, that is only going to be won by one team that is that little bit different. I want to ask both of you, does that inclination to be a little bit different justify drafting tight ends with your first 3 picks?
No.
We have the roster here: Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Zach Ertz, Chris Carson, Ryan Tannehill, Mark Ingram, Cam Newton, first wide receiver off the board, T.Y. Hilton at wide receiver 27, followed up by A.J. Green and Marvin Jones, and Matt Breida at RB3. I can't get with this roster because, at the end of the day, yes, you're owning the tight end position, great, but you suffered at so many other places. Ryan Tannehill and Cam Newton, I think, are decent quarterbacks. Chris Carson and Mark Ingram, I think, are probably going to be low-end RB1s. Mark Ingram might be less than that if he gets supplanted during the season. You've already heard my thoughts about T.Y. Hilton and essentially everybody in that Indianapolis Colts passing game. I just think it's going to be very run-heavy. A.J. Green, the jury's out on whether or not he can stay healthy. Marvin Jones, he'll be great if he's healthy, but if he's healthy is the issue too. You basically have one thing that you can count on and not much beyond that.
I guess the question you have to ask yourself is, what does drafting 3 tight ends and starting 2 of them,
no, you're starting 3 every
starting all 3 of them, is that giving you an advantage anywhere in terms of what you could have had at those other 2 picks or 3 picks for that matter? And I would say probably not. Even in this format, I would still say probably not.
Yeah, it's hard to reconcile what else you could have got at those positions. Even at the 308, even if you just wanted Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, you could have done something different at the 308 to go ahead and start with a better running back than Chris Carson or start with a better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill. I really think that, if anything, is probably the main thing on this roster that causes me to be a little bit confused. I can almost see where you're coming from with Kelce and Andrews.
There's just no advantage to, I think, unless you have somebody like Kittle, Kelce, Andrews, 2 of those. I just don't know if is an advantage to starting a tight end in the flex position, I suppose. Unless, like, I don't know what's going on with your flexes, but I would much rather have a running back or a wide receiver there.
Yeah, I like the power move of taking tight ends early because it's a different construction and it's a safe floor and you're getting 15 to 20 points a game out of them. But 3 in a row to start the draft is the rough spot. I mean, 2 in your first 3 rounds is pretty. I like it. You know, I can see it working, but 3, you can see here you sacrifice the running back position quite a bit in this move. I'm actually okay with Tannehill, Newton, and Tyrod Taylor because I mean, I feel, especially if Tyrod holds on to that job all year long, like I feel those 3 are a good room for that. I feel like it's an okay wide receiver group that he can make do with. But the running backs they took so much of a hit because the first 3 picks are tight ends. And by the end of round 3, all the good running backs are gone in SFB. So you end up with Chris Carson as your RB1. It was a hit. You probably would have been better served to start with, to take one running back in the, like if you wanted to do this tight end heavy move, one of those 3 picks should have been a running back, a good solid running back, and the other 2 could be tight ends, and you still would have had the strong tight end power move.
Yeah. Was it Eric? Was it Eric? I asked you this before. It was Eric Moody who took 4 in a row last year, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
Everybody was like, "What is he doing? Oh my god!" But yeah, I mean, it's just tight end early. Again, hate it, but I guess I understand it. I just, oh boy, even if
it'd be different, but there is a limit to that.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just take a tight end in or a running back in the 3rd, I think you feel a lot better about Chris Carson being your RB2 and having a better RB1. But I
mean, he at 108, I don't know what was there, but say let's say you flip the 205. Let's say you flip, instead of Mark Ingram, you take
Nick
and
Chubb
Mark Andrews. Like that, yeah. You take like Nick Chubb or Joe Mixon or something instead of Mark Andrews. And then in the Mark Ingram spot, take a guy like Darren Waller.
There you go.
Like that's an exponentially better setup for your roster, and you've made running back that much stronger.
I think sometimes people just try and get cute.
I like the boldness of it, but yeah, 3 in a row to start is just a rough hit.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be the end of this week's Dynasty Diagnostic podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for allowing us to go ahead and find our little niche and our little cool way of also contributing to the awesome Fantasy Cares and to what Scott Fish is doing. Scott, I want to open up the floor to you really quickly before we go ahead and completely log out or log off here. Do you have anything to go ahead and say before we get going here?
Sure. I'll end what I've ended everything with for the last 6-7 years. Bring a charitable element to your leagues. If even if it's just take one of your entry fees from your league and give it to some sort of charity, either the league picks or the winner of the league picks. It can do a lot of good out there, and I think that mentality has already been talked about a lot out there. But I'm going to keep pushing it. I run Dynasty and Redraft leagues. SafeLeagues.com is my day job. My day job is running fantasy leagues. Crazy enough. But so if you're looking for a league, you can hit that up or follow me on Twitter, ScottFish24, and Instagram now. I guess I'm on that now. So ScottFish24.
What about you, Sam?
First and foremost, none of this actually matters because I'm going to win anyway. So, I mean, take what we said with a grain of salt because it doesn't matter. That being said, please go to patreon.com/Dino Diagnostic and help support us, get access to a chat, get a t-shirt, and other cool stuff. And then go to FF Pod shirts on Store Envy. That is Dynasty Outhouse's t-shirt store for fantasy football. We have t-shirts in there. Trade Addicts. Who else? Superflex Super Show. there's several podcasts in there that have T-shirts, mugs, stickers, and 10% of the proceeds go to Fantasy Cares. So not only are you supporting us, but you're also supporting a good cause.
That's awesome.
And for the love of all that is holy, you guys rock with me last year with taking Stompy down. Nobody wants to see another photo. Nobody wants to see Stompy in basically a leotard all over again.
I'm gonna do it anyway. I didn't win last year, and I did it anyway. So
don't let it happen again. So for the love of all that is holy, do well in the Scott Fish Bowl, people. But that is us going ahead and ending our episode. As always, thank you so much for making it to the Dynasty Diagnostic Service Center. Please be sure to keep up with your scheduled maintenance and catch us next time to ensure quality performance. See you at our next visit.